Whether you're picking and grinning or just grinning, grab a drink, pull up a seat. It's time for Roots Music Rambler. Turn it up.
So, how's that trip to Red Rocks coming along? You got your Phoebe Bridgers t-shirt all packed and ready to go there, Mr. Falls?
Yeah, about that. I guess I should have not run my mouth so much about going on that trip, because the day we recorded episode 2, in fact, while we were recording, and I almost said something about it while we were recording, but I knew we had talked about it in the intro. I got an email notification. I actually got a text message from Karen with a screenshot of an email notification saying that the Ryan Adams show at Red Rocks, in which we had third row tickets, was canceled. So,
damn.
Guess I need to stop puffing my chest out about good tickets to good shows. So.
I mean, and then too, thinking about giving the guy shit about his ex-girlfriend from the third row.
So I can hear all of you in unison saying karma, and you're probably right. I probably should have. Although I still think Katie had a fantastic idea that was really clever and smart aleck. And I wasn't actually going to do it, but at the same time, yeah, I guess I stepped in it. So I asked for that one. So I'm not going to see Ryan Adams at Red Rocks, unfortunately. Hopefully we'll make that up and see him at some point, but there you go.
All right.
Welcome to Roots Music Rambler. She's Frank.
He's Falls.
And we're rambling on through the stories behind the music we love.
And today on the show, we have Mike Mentz, who is a, Chicago native, Chicago area native, singer, songwriter, traveler. And he's got some really unique ideas and very creative, very talented, and love talking to him.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun conversation. Very different than what you would think we would interview in terms of style of music and whatnot. But there's so much overlap with his traveling and how it folds into his music that it just makes. I mean, he's almost a poster child for this show in a lot of ways. So. It's going to be a fun conversation. And of course, we're going to share our weekly pick and the grinning. We share our picks for whose music is making us grin the most this week. Might be new artists, might be old, but they'll sure be good.
Yes. And before we get into it and we kick it all off there, Jason, why are you in a pink room? Is that like you hanging out with Barbie? What are we doing?
I'm not just in a pink room. I have a pink seashell pillow for the couch. So. I am actually in, and I want to get this right, so I'm going to click over here so I can read this off. I am in Nashville, Tennessee. I came down for the weekend because it is Parents Weekend at Belmont University. My son's a freshman at Belmont, studying audio engineering and music business, by the way.
Sweet.
But so he's here. It's Parents Weekend. So I came down and I decided instead of going for a hotel, I'm going to rent an Airbnb. And I went on Airbnb and I found an Airbnb that is decked out as a tribute to Dolly Parton. And so there's actually an Airbnb here in town called the Dolly Parton House. Well, the people that own that have actually done a loft and an apartment or two and several other Dolly Parton tribute-y kind of places. So the whole place is pink with yellow trim, and there's Dolly quotes and pictures. And so I have a little video here that for those of you who are listening on the audio podcast, you may want to jump over to see this episode on YouTube, because I'm going to give you a video tour of this place. So I started zooming in on that pillow in the couch of where I'm sitting now. And you can see sort of the setup with my camera and all that kind of jazz. And then right above my head where I'm sitting now, there's a little painting of Dolly Parton, which is kind of nice. And then I'm walking around the room here. There's some quotes hanging on the wall. The way I see it, if you want to be the rainbow, you got to put up the rain. Now we're going to walk in and see there's like an antique telephone kind of thing. I think it's kind of a gimmick, but it's the Dolly house. telephone hanging on the wall. Then the bathroom, the radiator and the top half of the bathroom are pink. Yes, there is a disco ball on the ceiling in the bathroom. And by the way, disco balls are made in Louisville, Kentucky. Most of them are anyway. The bedroom, love this. Jolene, 4 times up over the makeup mirrors on the pink wall. And then, of course, another big Dolly picture and quotes and tributes and all that kind of stuff. And then I will walk back down the hall here and I'll show you a little bit more. Oh, what would Dolly do? That's also on the wall, too. And let me walk back down the hall here and I'll show you the kitchen, which is, nothing other than the pink is nothing really Dolly Parton, but it's just kind of to show you the rest of it. Here's the wildflowers, don't care where they grow poster on the wall. In the room where I'm filming. And then, there's the press for champagne button over on the wall. That's pretty cool too. And then of course, it just makes a sound. But then you can look outside. There's some, in the neighborhood. This, we're a couple of blocks off of Belmont's campus, where this place is, but I wanted to give everybody a little visual tour of it. So again, if you're listening on the audio podcast, I'm sorry, the last minute and a half probably wasn't all that interesting to you, but go check it out on YouTube so that you can see this apartment. And it's one of several. We'll put links to the Airbnb listings so that you can see them. And so I thought, well, if I'm coming here and I'm going to be filming an episode of Roots Music Rambler, I might as well get an Airbnb that's music themed. And it just so happened there was one for Dolly. So I got it. It's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. And we kind of did the same thing last weekend. We stayed in an Airbnb in Bloomington, Illinois. We went down there to see the Drive-By Truckers, and the B&B that we stayed in was music themed as well. It's an old Victorian home that they shaped into, I think there's 2 apartments. So one of them is the Airbnb. And I mean, everything had some sort of music connection, down to the sponges in the kitchen to wash the dishes with. They were fashioned like cassette tapes, and it was really cute, really thoughtful, and it makes the trip that much more fun.
Yeah, I saw some of the pictures of your visitation there in Bloomington on. I think if you want to see them, I think she posted them on the Roots Music Rambler Instagram account, so you can go check those out. If not, her other one, Mom Work Travel. What's the other one?
The Working Moms Travels. Did I post? They might have just been stories, so they'll be gone. But I could definitely put them up on the Roots Music Rambler Facebook page.
Yeah, throw them up there so people can see them. That'd be fun if they're not on Instagram or whatever. That'd be cool. Anyway, so and also too, by the way, we talked a little bit about this on episode 2 with Cindy Impsch. I happened to get to town in time for the last day of Americana Fest, and I ran over to see the Secret Impsch Society play at Americana Fest with Austin Lucas and several other folks at a little sort of concert at Groove Records that Cindy had organized for kind of, I would say, I don't know if this was an official label or anything on it, but it was kind of the queer country crowd. And it was fantastic. It was just a little, sort of stage set up in the backyard of the record store, which is actually a house. And there were probably, 40 or 50 people there, but it was really hot. But at the same time, I posted several things to my Instagram and TikTok. And I know we threw some stuff up from that on the Roots Music Rambler Instagram account too. So go check that out. But I was fantastic. I mean, it was just so cool that the episode came out on Friday, and on Saturday, I actually get to meet her in person because we, of course, did the interview virtually because she's out in California. So that was fun. It's been a fun weekend.
And not planned at all. It just happened to work out that way. So
just
that was awesome.
Serendipity happened to us, which is,
you got to meet Cindy in person after talking with her.
I did. So and it actually, awesome. and by the way, we're probably going to have Austin Lucas on the show at some point. I saw Austin Lucas twice this week, which is crazy because I was at he was at the event on Tuesday of last week that I went to in Louisville. And then I saw him again on Saturday, and he's absolutely nuts because he's super energetic on stage, and we'll talk more about him at some point. But he did the show here at Americana Fest and got into his car and drove to do another show the same night in Indianapolis, which I think Cindy referred to on episode 2. And the guy's, he's nuts. He's got a lot of energy, energy.
That would require a lot of energy for sure.
And I'll tell you, the Austin Lucas episode, when we do have him on the show, and we will, I talked to him about coming on the show. He's going to come on the show at some point. We're in for he's a handful. We're in for a hell of a conversation on that one. That's going to be a fun episode for sure.
And if you know anything about Austin or follow him on Instagram, the socials, he you already have an idea of what to expect. I saw him perform a number of years ago. Got to meet him too, but it was very quick and stuff. And I've been following him ever since. And boy.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
I'll tell you this. His recorded music that you'll hear on the streaming services and iTunes and whatnot does not do him justice. Him live it's an experience.
Yeah,
he's got so much energy. He's very political. He brings all that to the table, which I know that doesn't necessarily sit well with some people, but man, he's got so much energy and is a great musician and great songwriter. So I definitely would encourage people to pay attention to him. And of course, we'll have him on the show as soon as we possibly can. He's finishing up a tour and then we're going to connect. So it'll be a couple episodes down the road, but he's coming. So that's good stuff.
Can't wait.
We are sipping on a bourbon. I'm out, so we'll take a quick break for a refill. Take a moment, if you will, and listen to more about the awesome sponsors that help make the show happen. The one we have to mention before we go to break, I was going to wear my muskox flannel for this show, but it's Nashville, and even though it's the second or third day of fall when we're recording this, it's hot here, and I brought the thick one, so I was going to be just like sweating my nuts off if I put this on during the show.
Not a good visual.
No, not a good visual at all. So muskox, we talked about them on the last episode, premium flannel. And what was the thing? Buttery soft and built like a tank, just like me. So you got to go check this out. It's gomuskox.com/Rambler. And if you use Rambler on the checkout, you get a discount as well. gomuskox.com/Rambler. Use the code Rambler. This is Roots Music Rambler.
He was a corporate executive. He was a whore for it. He never really lived. He never really did get to know his kids. He meant to get to it. She had a lot of dreams.
That is Someday by Mike Mentz off the album Souvenir. And Mike is our guest today. Love this tune.
She was gonna try someday.
There we go. Jam it.
It's funny watching both of you like lip sync. It's
it's a little taste of it there.
Yeah.
Mike, welcome into the show. How are you, man?
Thanks a lot for having me. I'm great. Thanks. How are y'all?
We're wonderful, and I've been jamming on your tunes, as you could probably tell because I knew some of the lyrics there. I love that song Someday. Give us a little bit of background on that song because it's got a great message. It's basically telling people, hey, you only live once, man. Go for it. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I recorded that album after traveling to, I think, 10 different countries. I was living in Nashville. I traveled all over the place, and I came back. And I wanted to make a record in a studio in Nashville. It would be my second Nashville record. But I remember I had all these songs written from different places. That was actually the only song that I had on the record that I didn't write. And it was the first time I ever recorded a song that I didn't write. And put it on a record. It was written by a guy named Chuck Cannon, who's a really, really good friend of mine and a monster songwriter. Just written a bunch of pretty big hit songs over the years. But I remember he showed me this incredible song that he had written with the buddy, and I just fell in love with it. Like he recorded a demo at some point and just showed that to me, something that they had put together in his studio. And I remember listening to it and I was like, it just hit for every reason imaginable to me. What I had just experienced while moving around, it fit with the rest of the record. And I just really all of a sudden was like, hey, can I record that? And he was like, yeah, you should. Nobody has, and you should. So it was the first song that I had written the whole rest of the album and recorded the whole thing. We added that one. So I was really psyched about it.
Well, I love the energy of that song. And it actually, when the first time I played it and listened to it, I thought, okay, this is like a little bit of Broadway musical, a little bit of Queen. There's a lot of different, influences there. It sounds real. It's just really lively. It's a fun song.
Yeah. The first hit that I got was Queen. And I was like, that's not like what I write, but it fits. And I loved it. And you're right. It is a little Broadway. It's somewhere in between. Somewhere lives in that land, which I love. I love Broadway stuff. I love old jazz standards and new Broadway writing. And just like, it's something I do, but I've never been able to perform that stuff on stage. I write it in the background. So it fit perfectly for me. I love that song.
Very cool. So you, I think, have self-identified your genre here as travel pop. Yeah. And a lot of your music is based around travel, which we'll get into some of those nuances, but give us a little bit of background on where the whole travel theme came from. How did that come about?
Yeah. So I remember I was living in Chicago. This is before I moved to Nashville. And I remember waking up one morning on the weekend. Like I was working a lot in tech in Chicago. I was working a lot of hours, a lot of days. And I remember one day I slept in and I woke up one day and first thing I did, I was just sitting thinking for a long time. And first thing I did was I grabbed a piece of paper and I wrote down singer, songwriter, traveler. And for some reason, I was just trying to identify the things that I was really good at, that I thought I could do that not everybody could do. What did I have to offer as part of a conversation? And that was the first time I wrote down travel. Like, I'm good at traveling. I didn't really consider before that you could be good at it. And I am really, really good at it. It doesn't mean like I've been everywhere. At the time, I hadn't been half the places I've been now, but I was good at going with the currents. I'm good at not freaking out when I don't know what's about to happen. I'm good at being really curious enough to like put up with a lot of bullshit, and have that be like, okay, like have that be the price of admission to go see something great or experience something unpredictable. And so after I thought about that, I was like, cool, that's a cool space to explore as a writer, and especially as a songwriter. And how can I carve out a style and explore a style of writing by making traveling part of it? Like, how can I get music outside of the studio? How can I write stuff that's inspired not just by the love that you feel for somebody when you sit in one place, or you go to a bar, or you go through heartbreak where you're from, or how can I experience all of those things and the people and the places that are in all the nooks and crannies of this world? How can I take those things and make them central to the music that I make? And that's really where the idea came from. And then ever since then, I've really just been going down that rabbit hole for like a decade.
And I like what you say about being good at traveling. I like to think I'm pretty good at traveling too. And that's how you and I first met, right?
Yeah.
We met because we were running in the same travel circle. Then, that's what got us to meet. But here you are now, you're also a singer-songwriter. And I've got this podcast that focuses on music and travel. So you are like the poster child for Roots Music Rambler.
I've been called the poster child for way worse. So I am excited to be here.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. And so, being good at travel. And so the concept of Roots Music Rambler for me, when I first had the idea, was to travel to the places that inspires the music that I love and get to the roots of it. And so what you set out to do is, I don't know, is it parallel? Is it opposite, inside out, or whatever. I don't know, but the travel and the music theme, they kind of go together. And there was a quote, Jason, I think I shared it with you about like, since the beginning of time, people have always moved, and so has music. So you can't almost we can't exist without both, or you can't have one without the other. I don't know. It's probably a little too philosophical for a Sunday afternoon, but that's where I kind of drew the inspiration for this. And so when Jason and I were talking about resurrecting this, I was like, we got to get Mike on, because this is like, he's the embodiment of the spirit of Roots Music Rambler.
Keep talking, don't stop complimenting. I really love that. I love that. This space is such a unique space, and I really don't think it's explored very much. Like, there are a lot of intersections that I think movies can elevate, that I think music can elevate, that I think TV shows or streamable, anything, like situations can elevate. National Geographic is good at it, like publications, but like, I don't think many of them are doing it intentionally. I think it's all just like a byproduct of what they're trying to shoot, or what they're trying to portray, or the story they're trying to tell. What I find exciting, that I think you do too, especially with how you just described this podcast, is like that space, that intersection between music and space, or place, or city, or country. Like, that in itself is interesting to me. And I think it's super rife with like amazing stories and amazing connections. Not just looking at it through the lens of like, this is a type of music from this place, which is always interesting, but that's sort of more of like a documentary feel. For me, the more creative feel or artistic feel that I can bring to the fore is how do you use this space? How does this space affect the actual works of art that you're creating? And I think that's pretty exciting.
Well, and I think if from the dumb guy third party looking at the two of you having this conversation and understanding a little bit about both of you, the way I would sort of distill this down for the audience is what Roots Music Rambler tries to do is understand how the place impacts the art that comes out of it. So how does Eastern Kentucky affect Dwight Yoakam, right? What informed his music, because that was where he was from. The difference in what you do is you actually go to other places, not where you're from, and let the place impact what you create.
100%.
So it's really this interesting circle.
Yes, agreed. And I mean, I can't, pretend like where I'm from and what I experienced when I was growing up isn't a huge part of, and won't always be a huge part of what I do and the conversation that I'm able to have, musically or literary wise, or anything that I'm making. It's always going to be a big part of me, and where I came from still influences me, of course. But part of growing up for me was traveling. And now, like you said, like I actively want to explore how putting myself in other places will continue to affect me in different ways.
Love it. So you started to talk about your background, where you grew up. So give us that story. What was the origin story?
Yeah, sure. When you say origin story, I feel like a superhero. So thank you.
That's what we're here for, Mike.
It was the sewers, and I grew up with a large rat, and some brethren who were gigantic turtles
and you ate a lot of pizza.
Karate. Nice. Yes. No. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and it was a sleepy little suburb. There was not a whole lot of excitement where I came up, but one of the things two things that I think shaped me that I was really, really lucky, very, very grateful for is, one summer, instead of outfitting the house with air conditioning, my parents thought it was more important and more enjoyable and more exciting to go to Ireland. to go see cousins. And so instead we took a trip to Ireland instead of getting air conditioning. And that kind of was always put off because it was like, I mean, we can be hot, but like that's kind of a small price to pay in the summer in order to be able to go, explore somewhere new. So that was kind of instilled in me when I was little, to the point where like I saved up. And then when I was 12, I actually paid for my own plane ticket and I went by myself to Ireland.
Wow.
To go spend 3 weeks bouncing around different towns, staying with cousins. So they would I'd get into the airport, somebody pick me up, I'd go hang out with cousins in one place, and then they would put me on a train or a bus, send me off, and my cousins would in the next town would pick me up, and I'd hang out with them for a while. So yeah, even being little, it was just something that was like, yeah, go do that.
That's crazy.
And
as a 12-year-old.
Yeah, as a 12-year-old.
That's incredible.
That's what I love about, it really just sort of made the world more accessible. Like, there's a lot to be afraid of the things you don't know. And the world can be a dangerous and scary place sometimes. But, that's not the norm. Not in my experience, at least. People are shitty everywhere, but people are great everywhere. And so I think the majority of experiences that are out there to have are positive.
Where did music come into that childhood connection? I understand the travel portion now.
Yeah.
But where did music fall in there?
Yeah, I'm equally grateful and super, super lucky to have the influences that I did when I was little. Basically, I would sing around the house all the time, vacuuming or mowing the lawn, or, just as I was growing up, just around singing all the time. But I didn't think that was a thing. And then I got to high school, and there was a really, really, really good music program at my high school. I had no idea what I was walking into, and I got really lucky, especially because world-class facilities. It was a public high school, but just their funding was incredible. The traditions that they had were incredible. The teaching staff was amazing. Great orchestra and band and dance programs and drama and choral programs. And I got really lucky. I walked into the choral program as a sophomore, and I got into the best choir of the school right away. And not because I was great, I didn't know what I was doing, but because it was the only choir I could be in with my academic schedule. So I got really lucky. The choral director was basically like, you can audition. So I came in and sang the national anthem, which, by the way, is probably the worst audition song of all time because it's really difficult. But I didn't know that.
Truly.
And so I did okay, but she was like, look, you're going to have to work really hard. And she was right. She let me be in the choir, but I was surrounded by a bunch of upperclassmen as a sophomore who had been in choir for 2-3 years already. They all knew how to read music. They all knew what they were doing. They knew how choir worked. They knew, just everything that I didn't know. So I was surrounded by a lot of cool kids who I had no idea what I was doing. And I've tried to replicate that exact learning experience for myself in lots of different ways, because it's great. If you ever want to learn something fast, surround yourself by a lot of people you respect who are way better than you. And that was sort of a very fast on-ramp to music for me. I learned how to read music. The next year I started picking up guitar just because I wanted something to sing to. And I got into an acapella group in high school that then just really kind of was a even faster on-ramp for learning. We did a lot of our own arranging and figuring out parts and practicing on our own, and just constantly challenging myself. And then I got to college and I started writing songs. But yeah, it was all just super fun, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Can we name the high school? I think I might know.
Yeah, I went to Glenbrook North. No,
Glenbrook North. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
but
cool.
New Trier's got a great music program as well. Yeah.
Well,
and it was weird. The music was cool at my high school. If you were good, it wasn't like you were. It didn't have the social barrier to
the stigma of being the nerd in choir.
So you had to, in those situations, you got to really love it to push past that. And those kids are awesome, but like I didn't even have that barrier. It was just like, here's a really great high school, here's a lucky situation of you falling into it, and by the way, if you're good at it, you like don't even have to worry about being uncool. So there was no I was crazy lucky.
That's
So
very cool.
you said you started writing songs in college. Had you written anything before then? You know, like poems or stories? Were you a writer, or is that something you just started doing after you learned the music?
I liked writing, but I didn't like in English class when you'd have to write. I didn't like writing with rules. I really didn't like it. So I was good at it. I knew how to do it, but I was exhausted by it and I was bored by it. So even I remember senior year of high school, we did like a poetry part of the course. And for all intents and purposes, it was really cool, but I hated it because it was like, here's a poem, you write a poem, and then someone's going to tell you why you're wrong. And I'm like, and it wasn't really framed that way. It was framed like you didn't do this thing that you're supposed to do in the poem, or you didn't, understand this concept. But like for me, it was just, I couldn't stomach it. It was just like, what is the point of this if you're going to put rules on it? So for me, I think once I got to college, and specifically I studied abroad in Paris for a semester. I had written a song in high school towards the end on guitar. But once I got to Paris, my academic schedule in high school was really rigorous, as it was in college. But for this particular semester, I took classes from like an external company instead of my university. And that external company, the classes were difficult, but the workload was really light. So I found myself in Paris with like more time than I'd ever had in the last 7 years of my life, and a guitar, and no money. So I was like, what am I going to do with my day? I'm going to take my guitar. I'm going to go down, sit by Notre Dame right by the Seine, and I'm just going to write all day, every day. And I wrote the shittiest songs of all time, like just horrible music that no one should ever hear, paired with just drivel. And
Were you
but
like
that's what it
sensitive,
takes.
like moody guy?
Of course I was. Look at me. Of course I was. But that's like, you got to get through that garbage in order to like, you got to write it out of you. And then it's a bunch of copying people that you love. And it's a bunch of like, trying to recreate the stuff that you're like, that you put on a pedestal, that eventually little by little you chip away at, and you're able to cut through to something that's like, oh, I don't think anybody said that like that before. And then even that is sandwiched between like two pieces of shit in a song, but like at least you recognize it for what it is, and then you're like, okay, that's the stuff, that's the good stuff, that's the stuff that I can say that nobody else can.
That must have been really terrible to be in Paris just with a guitar and a notebook, and oh, poor you.
Yeah, well, for $50,000 a year at the time, it was a terrible investment. On paper, a terrible investment, but truly, that was probably the most education I got in college, was being on my own in Paris, making stuff that I wanted to make for the first time.
Yeah,
That.
I go back to that old Malcolm Gladwell tenet of it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something.
Yeah.
What was that kind of your 10,000 hours was just grinding?
It was part of it. Yeah, definitely part of it. But even in that sense, it didn't feel like a grind. Like that didn't feel like I'm honing the steel, or like I'm shaping the steel. Like it just felt like something I wanted to do. Like I had time, and I was just like, I had more inspiration than I knew what to do with. I was surrounded by nothing but novelty, nothing but beauty. Even when beauty was gross, the dark parts of beauty and the light parts of beauty, like everything was new and exciting, and surrounded by new people from everywhere, and new ideas and art, and just like it was like going fishing and having the fish jump into your boat. Like, it was just like, you couldn't write fast enough. And again, it was crap, but like, it was a great atmosphere to cut through all of that and just keep at it and have the time and space to do it without feeling like you're shirking your work.
That's
Very
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said too about, okay, here's the mom and the teacher and me, saying, that was the time when you did the most learning, right?
Yeah.
And it was outside of a classroom or a lecture hall. Mm-hmm. And for that reason alone, I think college is important for a lot of people. Also realizing it's not meant for everyone, or everyone is not meant for college.
Sure.
But that can also speak to just travel experiences, right? There's so much to learn about the world and about ourselves just through travel. And that what you just said kind of validates my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I loved my college experience. I loved what I learned. There's stuff that I went through in classrooms in college that I couldn't do in the wider world. And I loved the education that I got. I'm super, super lucky. But like, whether you go to college or not, whatever your education experience is in your life, like, I would be shocked if you learn more in any classroom at all, than you can learn one day wandering around a new city. It's just not, there's just so much that you can take in, and to keep it's also a matter of how much focus you can keep. In a classroom, it's sometimes really hard. When you're walking around a city, you're focused the whole time. There's no downtime. There's nothing that's uninteresting when you're in a new place. Sure. So you're totally immersed in it, without trying. And I think it's funny. One thing that I say whenever I have a chance on stage is, whenever I'm playing a show, is if I could have my music do one thing in the world, it would be to inspire somebody to get up off their couch, out of their hometown, and to go experience a place they've never been. Nice. If you see the sunrise in a new country, the world literally gets bigger. Yeah, that's cool. And when you see what life looks like through somebody else's eyes halfway around the world, it's a whole lot harder to fear or hate that person. And I think the farther we travel, the closer we all become. Wow.
Mike Mentz,
love
add
that.
Philosopher to your list of talents.
It's just a philosopher is a nice word for just a dude who thinks way too much. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Seriously, that was outstanding. I got chills.
Yeah, that was fun. That's a great cut right there. We're putting that in the promos.
Yes, you need to put music to that, Mike, and then you could put Jason and me as your inspiration for that in the liner notes. Okay. But
that does not come with the percentage, just so you know.
No worries. Whatever. We'll sacrifice that.
We're here for the people.
We're talking to Mike Mentz, obviously a philosopher now, as well as world traveler, singer-songwriter, musician. When we come back, we want to get into his latest project, but we cannot go to break without a little bit more of this wonderful tune. So we're going to play it.
All you got is dreaming. When you're sleeping in your car, you wanna drive away from every day, but half a tank won't get you far.
Wow, that's some good stuff right there. That is more than I bargained for. Also, from Souvenir by Mike Mentz, who joins us on the show today. And Mike, tell us a little bit about that song. I love that. That's so good.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I wrote that so after college, I did a series of jobs. I had a mountain of college debt. And I did just kind of ran right into like temping and a couple different office situations that were one of them was really lovely because of the people I worked with, but the majority of it was mind numbing and terrible. And just like it's coming out of like, going to Paris for a semester and graduating college, and you're just like, let's go do something great. I'll just file these folders. Yes, sir. No problem.
Yeah. Welcome to the real world.
For like, $14 an hour or something that was just like, not even paying my loan. So yeah, that was kind of a brutal awakening. So coming out of that, I had the opportunity to jump on a cruise ship. I got offered the weirdest job of all time out of nowhere. I got a call while I was working in an office. And this particular office was the first one. It wasn't a temp job. It was a legit 9 to 5 working for a school district doing benefits coordination. I had zero reason to do this job other than it was offered to me and I needed it. And I figured it out pretty quick. I didn't know how to do it, but figured it out pretty quick. And then it was the first time in life where I was like, okay, this is a job that conceivably I could keep for as long as I want it. It doesn't pay me a lot of money, but it has standard raises. I could probably retire at this age because I had a lot of time to kill. I was doing all these calculations. The job wasn't terribly difficult. So it's like, well, how much, hourly am I making? How many years would I have to make this money? And all of this. For the first time, I was like, okay, this is like, if I wanted it to be, I'm set. I got to get the fuck out of here right now. Immediately. Gotta leave. And so as I was feeling that, just like, don't get sucked into this. This is what you want to do with your time. I got an offer out of the blue to go sing as part of a 4-man acapella group to go sing on a cruise ship for 6 months. I had never been on a cruise ship before. I didn't know what one looked like other than in the picture or in the commercials that you see on TV.
Wow.
So I didn't know the other guys that I was singing with. Anyway, I took the job, long story short. And for 6 days in New York, I rehearsed with these 3 other guys that I just met. Then 6 days later, we jumped on a cruise ship and we're singing in front of 800 people within the first 3 hours. And then we did that for 6 months. We toured the Caribbean and the Baltic and Western Europe. And then 6 months later, it was done. And wow. I came back to Northbrook, Illinois, where I knew everything and nothing was different. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not shitting on that. But I'm just saying after that experience, that's not what you want.
Right.
And so I still had all of this debt. I paid off some of it, which was great because there aren't a lot of expenses if you don't want there to be when you live on a ship. But I came back to like stasis. And that's why I wrote that song was I know that there's more out there from a firsthand account. Like I'm back home. Everything looks different because of how I've changed.
Yeah.
And I know that I don't necessarily deserve this because all the experiences I've already gotten to have. But like, I just got to keep trying for more and seeing how far I can get.
Well, you've obviously gotten pretty far because you've, probably traveled the world several times over now. And I know that your latest releases, the latest project you're working on is very much rooted in that sort of transit travel world. Tell us a little bit about what's the latest thing that Mike Mentz is kicking out there.
Yeah, man. There's two big projects that I'm putting into the world right now. So one is this project called Into the Dark. Last year, in fact, exactly a year ago, I went to Mexico for the first time. And by first time, I mean central Mexico. I had been along the coast, both coastlines, quite a bit on ships. So I kind of knew the feel of both of those coastlines. But I had never been to Mexico City other than going to the airport. And I had never been anywhere inland central Mexico. So I went there for the first time, and my goal was to go there for 2 months and make a record and a video series. So Into the Dark is the two pieces that are coming out of Into the Dark. Is one is a 7-song record, and one is a 15 video series. The 15 video series tells a single story, one arc story. Each music video and little sort of sinew plot line story acceleration piece is they all work on their own, but they work even better when you watch them in order. Nice. And so I wanted to make, for the first time in my life, I had put out 5 records that were at least like the vast majority of them were mostly original songs. I'd really only released like maybe 4 or 5 covers. This record is a cover record. So I chose 7 songs. I didn't know what those songs were when I landed in Mexico. When I got there, I was like, I'll figure it out as I go. We spent some time in Mexico City. We went to a place called San Miguel de Allende for a month. From there, that was our Mexico City and San Miguel were our 2 like hubs from which we popped off into different places around central Mexico. In Veracruz, and we went to Janitzio on Dia de Muertos, which is Janitzio is like this little island in the middle of the central Mexican mountains, way up high. It's an island in the middle of a lake, and it's the place that if you ask a bunch of Mexicans, like anywhere, they want to make at some point sort of like a pilgrimage to Janitzio on Dia de Muertos, because it's like the coolest place to celebrate. So we filmed there on Dia de Muertos. We filmed in the middle of the jungle in a place called Xilitla, where there's this place called Las Posas, which is this surreal and surreal, like the art movement, surreal sculpture garden created by this guy named Edward James. Maybe the 40s and 50s, I think. Dude was nuts. Crazy artist, dude, very interesting. Part of the surrealist movement, was friends with, Magritte and Dali and Gaudi and a bunch of, surrealist artists, but basically carved this sort of wonderland into the middle of the Mexican jungle, tiny little town, and basically employed most of the town to build this thing. There's buildings shaped like airplanes, buildings created like record players, spired castles that don't have rooms. Just like this guy was just making stuff like out of nowhere. Wow. And he had more money than he knew what to do with from his family in England. But incredible when we got to shoot there as part of for a music video. We shot on a plane. I shouldn't say shot and plane in the same sentence. We filmed on a plane.
There you go. Good word choice.
Thanks very much. We filmed on a 727 that was parked in a little town called Orizaba in Veracruz. How much do you think it would cost to film on a 727 in the United States anywhere? This is, by the way, not like a decrepit old 727. It's like perfectly renovated 727.
I mean, just to rent the plane on the ground for the day would probably be several $1,000s, I'm sure.
Yeah, at least. So we walked on and we had 45 minutes uninterrupted for $5. What's up? So
there you go. You're winning now.
The first music video, and that wasn't planned. That's the kind of thing that I filmed this with my buddy Mauricio, who is from Mexico City originally, and he has got his family's lovely, like cool friends. We had a car to use, and we just bounced around, just lots of miles on the road. But we had a plan for the day we were going to film that, a scene that day in Orizaba, and then we saw this 727 just in this like park, and we were hanging out with his dad at the time, and his dad was like, "Oh yeah, that's been here for a few years. The Mexico Airlines went out of business, and then like somebody bribed like a National Guard person, and that ended up here. Most of those planes went to the National Guard. Somebody bribed somebody probably, and now we have one. And it's just sitting there, and you can like go. It's like, you pay entrance fee to like go up. But we went in the middle of the day and nobody was there, so we both looked at each other. We're like, hang on, we can probably film on that thing right now. Let's go. So it ended up being like the centerpiece performance piece in one of the music videos. But it just finding somebody who films that way, who can like change plans really quickly when something pops up where you're just like, we have to take advantage of this. It's really rare. So I couldn't be more proud and excited about the stuff that we made there because of how it was made. It was made on the fly. We created the story on the fly. We chose the songs on the fly. We shot with a loose idea and just refined it as we went. And it's fucking magic. Like there's magic how it came together. I really think it's incredibly high quality, and I'm really proud of like the quality of the music and the filming, given all of those things, and given that our team is a team of two. So we can get in spaces that like a big crew, there's no chance, no prayer that they would be able to get in. From a logistical standpoint, and just from like we're going to change our plan right now, let's go do it. So all that stuff's coming out. The record's coming out in November. Singles have been happening since May. Every Friday there's either been a single, what's called an episode, which is a little 60-second snippet of Into the Dark, and like an episode without music, more just like a storyline thing, and then a full music video. Those three things, it's one of those the next Friday, and it just keeps moving. Taking a little hiatus right now, but then it comes back in a couple weeks, and it finishes before the end of the year.
I was following on Instagram. I got to see, everything that you shared. Well, maybe not everything, but a lot of it. Is that mostly where our listeners can find those videos and anything else that you shared?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky to understand from my perspective, even like where it makes sense to put anything out these days. So I just try to put out, unless you're selling something to Netflix or Apple TV or something, which is, if you know anybody, just let me know. But unless you're doing that, it's really just put it out anywhere that people can see it. So you can go to Instagram, or primarily Instagram or YouTube. YouTube, you can find all the videos in order. There's a playlist even, so you can just kind of press play and it'll do them all in order. And I just keep adding stuff.
And remind people, I know that you can also go to your website and, join you've got a couple tiers on your little, sort of fan club, I think, that gets, the email updates when you got something new, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can, I have a mailing list, which I pretty much put out an email every month. It's called 4 Wanders. And I just put out 4 things that while I'm traveling around, 4 new things that I found that are like easily quick little digestible things to start your month and check out something that helps your brain wander a little bit. Nice. So that's one. You can definitely join that. That's free. And then you can follow me on all socials whatever socials you do, that's easy too. You can join my Patreon, which is a monthly subscription, to get a little more behind the scenes, a little more exclusive access to what I do, stuff that I don't release publicly. And that's really fun. Like songs that I'll never show anybody else, or like versions of stuff or behind the scenes footage. It's a lot of fun. But you can go to patreon.com/Mike Mentz, or just go to my site, MikeMentz.com, and you can find it there. Each year, it's been a really big undertaking. I'm in the middle of this crazy project that I came up with called 21 Roads.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. So 21 Roads is, I came out of the pandemic with like a million ideas of what I wanted to make, and I couldn't decide. Like, I was like, Mike, come on, man, there's too many ideas. Just pick one or two to focus on. And I couldn't. Every time I sat down, I was like, look, I want to do every single one of these. And I was like, it's going to take 10 years to do that. Don't do that. So I was like, fine. And this is all talking to myself because I'm insane, is I'm not going to do it in 10 years. I'm going to do every single one of those 21 ideas. I'm going to do it in 5 years. Let's go. So I hit the ground running. And each year of those 5 years, I'm doing a special funding round where you can buy the records that are going to come out, or a book that's going to come out, or whatever else. And you can help fund 50% of my costs. I put in 50% every year, and then I ask the world to put in 50%. So last year we raised 20 grand. I'm going to do it every year for the rest of this 21 Roads project. So another 3 years of raising money each year to try to make all the stuff that I'm trying to make.
That's fantastic, man. Well, we're glad to help get the word out about that for sure.
Absolutely.
And we'll make sure links to all those things are in the show notes. We are talking to Mike Mentz. We're going to take one more break, and then when we come back, I want to wrap things up and ask him about some of those covers that he's doing, and a couple of other bigger philosophical questions about what's next and why he still does what he does. So taking us out, though, I want to share a little bit. He's got an album called Live in Thailand. And I want to play us out with a little cut from that. So I'm going to, which song do you want me to play, Mike? What's your favorite from that album?
Ooh, from that album, probably maybe like Ain't That the Life. And we recorded it on top of the bridge over the River Kwai. We recorded that song.
Oh, fantastic. So here we go.
1, 2, 1, 2. A boy stands on a living dock, sun up to 2 o'clock, catching fish and skipping stones. Now he hears a riverboat bell. Says if I had a riverboat, well, I'd float 1,000,000 miles from home. We got the ocean, we got the moon, throwing shadows across this room. We'll take it easy.
That's Play Close, and that's the live version from Live in Floyd's Knobs from Mike Mentz. Floyd's Knobs. Why Floyd's Knobs for a recording?
Why Floyd's Knobs for the name of a place? Even better question.
Okay, where is Floyd's Knobs?
It's in Indiana. It's in southern Indiana. And the Knobs, it's actually in Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois. The geography, there's kind of rolling hills, but there's a strip of sort of land around the, tectonic plates or whatever, where the rolling hills are a little bit more kind of bubbly. And so it's called the Knobs region. We have a Knobs region in Kentucky. It's kind of a circle. And so that's where it's a geographic thing.
Okay.
Very good. Very good.
That's what
indeed.
I know.
Yeah,
I mean, I thought I was the traveler, and I'm from Illinois. Never heard of it.
You notice that I just gave you expertise from where I'm from, not from somewhere I've been. So there's a big difference there. So
yeah, they don't have any knobs up by Chicago. They're down by Kentucky. Yeah, it's exactly right. Yeah, and it's right across the river from Louisville.
Oh, okay.
This was the reason that I made a record there is I had gone through there a few times and connected with a couple who run a Betty and David Farmer, sweetest people in the world, and they run a house show. One of the best run house shows I've ever seen, let alone been lucky enough to take part in. they get about 100 people in a common room of a housing not development, but like, what would you say, like a sort of like a neighborhood, like gated community that has like a common room for parties and stuff. They take that whole space up for a night. They do it every couple months, and they get professional sound to come in. A guy named Robert Payne, who's one of the best live sound guys I've ever experienced. And they have professional lights, professional sound, and food and drink. And then people buy tickets for nothing, like solid ticket prices. And they're able to get really good songwriters to come in. And I've been invited a few times. I absolutely loved my experience. One time after after sound check, Robert was showing me the recording from the board just so I could hear it. And I was like, this is a board recording? It was great, really good. And I was like, man, next time I'm here, I got to record something. And then that like went to my head as like, not only do I have to record something, I'm going to make a whole record here. So that's what I did. We sold tickets that helped offset the cost of making the record. Robert ran sound. He also edited or mixed the record. And I just was so happy with the live sound in front of a live audience. We made it over 2 nights, 2 nights in a row. We had a show one night, show the next night, live band. And the second night was just stellar. We made a bunch of mistakes the first night, but they were good. We learned from them and came back the second night, and it was great.
That's outstanding. All right. So before we wrap up here, I want to ask you a couple of things. First of all, the series of covers that you've been releasing, I think, are a part of the Into the Dark series, I believe. But I noticed most recently, I think I saw Because the Night came out. You've got Dancing in the Dark, Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. Why those songs? I'm curious as to how they fit into that narrative and why you chose them.
Yeah. So great question. I mean, first of all, they're just phenomenal songs. Like, how do you get better than Because the Night? Like, that's one of my favorite songs of all time. I was scared to death of trying that song because there are great versions of it. And it was one of my favorite songs, and it fit really well for the moment in the story that we wanted to portray. But then I had to be like, well, how am I gonna make this mine? And I'm just so intimidated by the versions that I love so much already, where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But then it came out great. So the songs that we chose, I really only had one in mind that I knew I wanted to do before I hit Mexico. And then I confirmed it once I was there. And that was a Beatles tune called I'll Follow the Sun. But the rest of them, it's right place, right time. Like literally walking down the street, thinking about that song and saying, oh, this could fit. We didn't know the story till halfway through the trip. It was a 2-month trip. And halfway through the trip, we had kind of pieced some of the story together, and we realized we could make it all fit together. And I don't know that I don't want to be like a cliffhanger person, but I think the answers are just in the pieces themselves. So like, why did we choose those songs for those moments? Watch it, and you'll find why they work for the moments that
we'll
they
find
do.
what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
There you go.
See what I did there?
I do.
That's good. That's
I
good.
like it.
I like it.
I agree.
So I want to ask a bigger question here because when I think of a lot of Americana artists, a lot of the roots music folks that we talk to, and someone like you who has been doing this for a long time, you're traveling the world, you're doing the Patreons and things like that. I mean, it's a hell of a lot more passion than it is, this is what I'm going to make it rich and famous one day. And there's a lot of people who get into the music business because they're trying to make it. And so I'm wondering, when you got into the business, when you decided to, okay, I'm going to be a musician, what was your definition of making it? And what's your definition of it now? And are they different?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that there's one assumption in there that isn't necessarily true for me. Like, I never said to myself, all right, I'm going to go be a musician, or I'm going to go, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Never had that moment. Still haven't had that moment. My moment is different. It's also how I look at life. For a while now, I've done it without thinking. And then once I started being intentional about a lot of things, I do it on purpose, which is I don't really think about life past 5 years from when I am right now. For a while, it was only 3 years. But now with 21 Roads, I had to think of it in a 5-year plan. But like, to me, it's a waste of time to make a plan that's longer than 5 years, because I just noticed that every turn I'm wrong about the things that I thought I was going to be. I'm wrong about the things that I thought I knew. And not necessarily wrong, but in the sense that like I'm a different person 3 years out. I'm different because of what I've experienced or what I've learned or what I've seen, or how I feel. So what's the point of making some bold statement like I'm going to be a musician for the rest of my life? It doesn't make sense to me, because I didn't think I was going to be a musician in high school. Even when I was at the peak passion of high school and college, like loving music and loving singing, like I didn't want to do this for the obvious reasons of like, it is a horrible business. It's not well structured. There's zero job security there. The hustle doesn't stop. So like all of those things is just like, that's not interesting to me. That sounds like a nightmare. But then you experience things and you're like, well, that's okay. Like I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to do the thing that I want to do despite all that. So for me, it's just been a constantly reposed question to myself over time of like, do I want to do this? What do I want to accomplish? Great question. Like, is it important to me to win a Grammy? No. Is it important to me to make $2 million making, doing music? No. What is important to me? This project is important to me. Why? Because I want to say this, or I want to try this, or I think I'm the only person alive that could do this. That's interesting to me. That's a value proposition that I don't think everybody gets. And so I feel really grateful that I can even be in a position where I can confidently answer the question, I'm pretty sure that no one else alive could do this. And that's interesting enough for me to say, like, I have to try it. That I can't not do it now that I've thought of it. So that's more like what drives me. Is it's not important to me that I have 20 different records. It's important to me that every record I make, I give a shit about. It's important to me that every place that I go, I go with an open heart and an open mind, and I take something away that I can't get anywhere else. And it's important to me that for the time that I spend doing something, I do it with everything I can, with everything I have, and I don't waste my time.
That's great. Well, let me tell you this. Regardless of the music, regardless of the genre, the sound, the lyrics, the harmonies, the melodies, anything, artists like that are the artists that we love the most. And it just so happens that you also have killer music, great songs, great lyrics. You sound awesome. I've been totally digging your catalog. So
thanks,
we're
man.
honored to have you on the show, man. This has been great.
Yeah, Jason was texting me this morning. I love this stuff. He's so talented. I'm like, all right, good. See, I told you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good, great
nice.
stuff.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Remind people one more time where they can find all your stuff on them there interwebs.
All of the social media spots. And then you can go to MikeMentz.com, MENTZ, MikeMentz.com. You can find anything you want there. And then there's just going to be an absolute avalanche of stuff for the next 3.5 years. So if you want to follow a very bizarre creative journey that I guarantee you can't find anywhere else, definitely follow what I'm doing right now, because it's the craziest time of my career.
That's fantastic. Go do it. Mike, thanks so much for the time, man.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, you too.
Welcome back to Roots Music Rambler. It is time for the Picking and Grinning segment. This is where Frank and I talk about places we've gone, people we've seen, music we've discovered, artists we're listening to, all that good stuff. And we mentioned earlier in the program, Frank mentioned that she went to Bloomington, Illinois, to see Drive By Truckers for the 197th time.
At least.
And so tell us a little bit about the show. How was it?
Oh, the show was fantastic. So it was in Bloomington, Illinois, which is about 2 hours south of where, from Chicago. And it's a college town. And I'd never been there, even though it's in my state, So we're like, what the heck? We'll just go down there, make a weekend out of it. So before the show, we went to eat at a place in town called Rosie's. Everybody recommended it. And while there, I also got to talk with Jay Gonzalez of the Drive By Truckers. He's a multi-instrumentalist, plays keyboards, guitar, and he does some stuff on the side too, solo. So you're going to have to stick around so you can hear the episode with Jay. And we made friends at Rosie's, and we're totally BFF now. And they hung out with us. It was their first Drive By Trucker show. So of course my husband, Tom, was like just ecstatic, and he like, kind of like took them in and, welcomed them to the family. And so we had a great time. American Aquarium opened for the truckers. And I think I mentioned before too, it was my first time seeing the whole band. Yep. I'd seen BJ solo before, and he's just so great. He's such a storyteller. He's such a personality. He's the kind of guy you just want to sit and hang around with and chit chat. But they were great. Tom had never seen them. He really wasn't even familiar with their music. So that was fun. Cause now he's all into American Aquarium. So, they were great. Drive By Truckers, always a rock show, Yeah. So then, the night before, so I was pretty exhausted. It was a very exhausting weekend. The night before, I did go to Judson and Moore Distillery in Chicago to see Joby Riccio.
You made it, yes.
I did make it. I said, you know what? I gotta go. This girl, I just was loving her music, and I love her, what she stands for. And so I did. I made it, and I made friends there too. So that was fun. And Joby did an awesome job. Got to chat with her for a little bit after the show. I really wanted one of her new t-shirts, but she didn't, only had one left, and it was like we probably could have fit in it together. So I'm gonna have to buy one on the off the website, which I'm happy to do. But such a delightful young lady, and was really excited to see her. And then she performed at Americana Fest too. Yep. She shared the stage with William Prince, Canadian singer-songwriter, and he's incredible too. So I'm very, very happy for Joby.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I mentioned this earlier too, last Tuesday, when we're recording this, the previous Tuesday, I went to see, my intention was to go see John Haywood, at kind of a combination art gallery, showing and live music performance. And I not only saw John, who was there, he is kind of a banjo, not phenom, but like he's just a great banjo player.
Yeah.
He's from, 20 minutes from where I grew up in Prestonsburg, Kentucky, lives in Whitesburg, Kentucky. He owns a tattoo parlor, and he also heads up a heavy metal band. So there's all these weird things coming together. I just got to see the banjo stuff live. And by the way, if you're familiar with the Jesco White and the Wild Whites of West Virginia documentary, he's in there somewhere playing. So just a really interesting cat, and got to talk to him a little bit before the show. My girlfriend Karen actually has one of his tattoos. He tattooed
I saw
her.
that. You put that on, on
so
the socials. Yeah, that's
exactly.
So cool.
So I got to meet him. I got to see him play. And then that was where Austin Lucas actually played after him. And so I got to see Austin play for the first time. And let me tell you, I mentioned this earlier. Austin Lucas live is an experience.
Yeah.
The great thing that he did, I thought, just before he ever, strummed the guitar or sang a note, was this room, which was a great little place. And it's called Portage in the Portland neighborhood in Louisville.
Okay.
And you could probably fit a couple hundred people in there, but there might've been, I don't know, 50 people in there. And he was like, okay, everybody come up. You got to come up here, stand in front of the stage. I'm not singing to you in the back. Get your ass up here. Like he kind of made it a real, participatory kind of thing, a lot of energy, and was fantastic. Sure. Loved him. And then the act that closed out the night was actually Phil Medley and his band, and they were fantastic as well. And so Phil's actually, that band is a Louisville area band, or a Kentucky area band that I hadn't heard of before. A friend of mine knows him. And so I was able to see them play too, which was really fantastic. So good live show, good music to go check out. And we're going to have at least Austin, if not John, or both on the show. We might even have Phil on the show at some point. So had a good time there. Not?
I do have a question, John Haywood. So does the banjo ever make it into the metal music?
I don't know. That's a really good question.
Like what a
that would be wild. I'll have to ask.
Yeah.
Great show, a great conversation with Mike Mentz today. We've been out seeing some live music. I'll promise you next time we'll bring some more new artists to you to go out and discover, although certainly you can go find John Haywood. If you don't know Austin Lucas, etc., if you don't know Phil Medley and those folks, Joby Riccio, go check them out. But next time we'll make it a point to say, okay, here's someone I've discovered that I haven't seen live yet, that I've been listening to, because I've got a couple on my list. I just want to, make sure y'all come back and listen to the next episode too.
Yeah.
So cool. Frank, anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think we're good. Yeah. Great show with Mike. And yeah, he's inspiring.
We did another one. So we're going to get out of here before I start coughing again. Roots Music Rambler is a production of Falls and Partners, copyright 2023. Our theme music is Sheepskin and Beeswax by Gentacorum. Join us online at rootsmusicrambler.com. And
no, you didn't make it.
Make sure you mash that subscriber follow button so you remember to join us for the next hoedown and throwdown. She's Frank.
He's Falls.
And whatever you do, kids, ramble on.